unchangeable minds get together and create tomorrow that is changing. Creating a sustainable tomorrow of Jeju. Global partner, JDC.
Coming up on Arirang News. China grapples with rising cases of Micoplasma Pneumonia, a common cause of pneumonia in children. Countries around the world, including South Korea, are raising alarm. Israel continues to bombard central and southern Gaza, pushing deeper into Khan Younis, the population center. With the Israel-Hamas war now into the second month, we take a look at when the war could come to an end. From special K-food zones to tax refund machines, local shops here in South Korea are getting upgrades to welcome visitors from all around the world with the gradual recovery of tourists after the COVID-19 pandemic. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with China seeing an unusual surge in the cases of Micoplasma Pneumonia in children. And countries around the world, including South Korea, are raising the alarm. Our Park Gun-woo explains what you need to know to prevent the spread of this health concern.
Concerns rise with the spread of respiratory diseases in South Korea and in other countries. The illnesses include both the flu and what's called Micoplasma Pneumoniae, the main pathogen causing community-acquired pneumonia in children and young adults. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, 270 Micoplasma Pneumoniae inpatient cases were counted during the fourth week of November, a 1.6% increase from the first week of that month. Mycoplasma pneumonia causes cold-like symptoms and, in worst cases, pneumonia.
Mycoplasma is concerning medically and epidemiologically in the fact that it is quite transmissible among people who are more vulnerable than the others.
The same doctor specifically noted that children up to 4 years old and those immunely weaker are the most vulnerable. He's also concerned about newer cases being resistant to regular antibiotics, leading to doctors using stronger ones. The expert spoke about preventive measures which are similar to what people did during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Would be prevented if we were to, constantly and very frequently wash our hands, wear the mask, and avoid going to public spaces and coming into very close contact with people who are having symptoms.
Meanwhile, in China, where Mycoplasma pneumonia has also surged recently, specialists attributed the spike to it being the first full winter after strict COVID-19 restrictions were lifted last year. The Chinese Education Ministry issued a notice on preventing and controlling winter epidemic diseases in schools by ordering absent students to be monitored, personal hygiene to be strengthened, and also requesting a stockpiling of masks. This was the first warning issued by the Chinese government related to the spread of respiratory diseases since its zero-COVID policy last year. Elsewhere, officials in Denmark and France said Mycoplasma pneumonia is now being considered an epidemic, despite the World Health Organization saying it is not a reportable disease and it appears to be in decline. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
An OECD report shows that students in Korea weren't affected too much by COVID-19 in their studies compared to other countries. Yoon has the details.
The COVID-19 pandemic was a stress test for education systems. Schools and students around the world had to adapt to sudden and profound changes in how learning was carried out, including lockdowns and extended school closures in many countries. The OECD Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, has tested nearly 700,000 15-year-old students in 81 countries or economies on mathematics, reading, and science. Its results released on Tuesday showed South Korea ranked 6th in mathematics, 4th in reading, and 5th in science. The OECD PISA tests explore how well students can solve complex problems, think critically, and communicate effectively. This gives insights into how well education systems are preparing students for real-life challenges and future success. Korea participated for the first time in PISA in 2000. While results for 2022 showed an unprecedented average overall drop in performance across the OECD countries, 18 countries or economies remained above the average. For South Korea, the average 2022 results themselves were about the same as in 2018, when performance levels were actually at the second worst since it first participated in PISA in 2000. But compared to other public education systems, South Korea suffered minimal disruption to its academic levels throughout the COVID-19 pandemic period. The 2022 results for South Korea showed that by gender, boys and girls performed at similar levels on average in mathematics, but girls outperformed boys in reading and science. While the country's overall academic performance remains similar, the gap between the highest scoring students and the weakest students has widened, particularly for mathematics. If school buildings had to close again in the future, many students across the OECD responded that they felt confident about using digital technology for learning remotely. And some 70% of students in South Korea felt confident about using video communication programs. 이은진, Arirang News.
The security chiefs of South Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet in Seoul on Saturday, furthering their discussion on regional security, including North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, global challenges, and economic security. The presidential office said on Wednesday that National Security Advisor Cho Tae-yong will hold a three-way consultation with Jake Sullivan and Takeo Akiba as part of a trilateral agreement reached at Camp David in August, which established the annual meeting. Before the meeting, Cho will hold bilateral discussions with his counterparts and co-chair with Sullivan the first South Korea-U.S. dialogue on core emerging technologies, including semiconductors, batteries, quantum computing, and AI. President Yoon Suk-yeol plans to convey his congratulations to Argentina's incoming president, Javier Milei, through his special envoy. Yoon's office said Wednesday that the South Korean leader will dispatch the government's policy coordination minister, Bang Gi-sun, to attend Milei's inauguration on Sunday. Bang will deliver a personal letter expressing Yoon's anticipation for close cooperation with the new administration and a stronger friendship between the two countries. During the envoy's trip, he'll also meet with senior government officials and Korean companies looking to enter the Argentine market. And in the Middle East, Israel continues to bombard central and southern Gaza, pushing deeper into Khan Younis, the population center. With the Israel-Hamas war now into the second month, our An Sung-jin takes a closer look at what's to come next.
The Israel Defense Forces on Tuesday reached southern Gaza's main city of Khan Younis, marking what they call the most intense day of combat in 5 weeks of ground operations against Hamas. Backed by warplanes and tanks, the IDF reached the heart of the city, where many Palestinians who fled since the start of the armed conflict are now situated. According to the chief of Israel's general staff, Israeli forces have secured many Hamas strongholds in the northern Gaza Strip and are now operating against the strongholds in the south. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that the Israel Defense Forces should retain control of the region following the disarmament of Gaza and the end of the war, shooting down any notion that an international force could be responsible for security in the Gaza Strip.
In order for Gaza to be demilitarized, there's just one force that can demilitarize it, and that power is the IDF. No international force can be responsible for that.
However, with the majority of Hamas militants and infrastructure being left, questions arise on what the final exit would be as more than 2 months have passed since the attack. And experts suggest that with conflicting interests, there will be no clear breakthrough or outcome.
The two sides, Israel and the US, are currently unable to coordinate their opinions on how to lead the post-Hamas era.
He suggested multiple scenarios with how the post-Israel-Hamas conflict could evolve, whether it is clearing out Hamas and its infrastructure, no matter how long it takes, implanting a new governing force, or restoring the previous Palestinian government. Professor Beck says out of these possible scenarios, none of them are quite plausible for now.
Complete eradication of Hamas while rescuing all hostages cannot be compatible. There are no other powerful forces other than Hamas that have the power to take over the Gaza Strip, and the previous governing body in Palestine was already unpopular due to corruption.
Despite Israel's intentions to govern the Gaza Strip, with several actors holding their own interests, it is becoming difficult to pinpoint a clear path forward in the Middle East. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is hosting an online summit of the Group of Seven Industrial Nations on Wednesday. Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno said at a press conference that the G7 leaders are likely discussing Russia's war against Ukraine and the conflict between Israel and Hamas. An international comprehensive framework on advanced artificial intelligence will also likely be high on the agenda. The G7 are Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United States, with the participation of the European Union. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to join the meeting as Japan wraps up its role as this year's rotating chair. Italy will take over the grouping's presidency from Japan next year. In the U.S., findings for the month of October show its labor market is responding to the Federal Reserve's tight monetary policy. That is to say, the resilient job market has shown signs of cooling to the lowest level in over 2 years. Our Modéer explains.
Job openings in the United States dropped to the lowest level in more than 2 years, signaling a cooling labor market on the back of high interest rates. According to the U.S. Labor Department on Tuesday, the number of job openings fell to 8.7 million in October, a sharp drop from 9.3 million the month before. It's the lowest number of job openings since March 2021 and is also lower than the expected 9.4 million job openings projected by Dow Jones. This decline is significant as labor market conditions are considered by the Federal Reserve when forming their interest rate policies. Despite the Fed's aggressive rate hikes to ease inflation, the U.S. job market has been surprisingly resilient. This latest figure, however, suggests that higher interest rates are finally dampening demand for workers. It also falls in line with data released last week that showed consumer spending slowing in October. With this latest announcement, Wall Street had a mixed end to trading on Tuesday amid expectations that the Fed could start cutting interest rates soon, and the 10-year Treasury yield falling to its lowest level since September this year. The benchmark S&P 500 sector indexes and the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 0.31%.
So I see a dichotomy as to what's going on in the market today between bonds being very bullish, yet it looks like, obviously, that stocks are a little bit more cautious about the outlook for their prospects going forward.
The financial markets have shown fluctuations throughout the past few months, with the S&P 500 index rising by over 10% in November from late October, amid hopes that the Federal Reserve has halted their rate hikes. It's widely expected that rates will stay unchanged at the Fed's FOMC meeting next week, but some stock markets investors are reportedly betting on rate cuts in March next year. More economic indicators are due to be released before the December interest policy is announced, such as the November jobs report. Moody, Arirang News.
Credit rating agencies S&P Global Ratings and Fitch have made no changes to their credit rating and outlook for China. Both rating agencies on Wednesday maintained their A+ ratings on China with a stable outlook. This comes just a day after another ratings agency, Moody's, downgraded its credit outlook on China to negative from stable, citing concerns about the world's second-largest economy's property sector crisis and its slowing medium-term economy. Moody's, however, reaffirmed an overall A1 credit rating for the country. Amid concerns over China's restrictions on urea exports, the South Korean government has decided to double its reserves of urea for vehicles. South Korea's public procurement service stated that it'll increase the storage from 6,000 tons to 12,000, and it is in the process of discussing it with domestic urea suppliers. The nation's finance ministry on Wednesday also announced that it'll request a one-time purchase of urea for gas stations and cargo companies. To reduce dependency on China, the government is pushing to provide incentives for companies that'll import urea from other countries. The chemical is used as fertilizer in farming and is a key fluid used to reduce emissions from diesel vehicles. From special K-food zones to tax refund machines, local shops here in South Korea are getting upgrades to welcome visitors from all around the world with the gradual recovery of tourists after the COVID-19 pandemic. Our Yoon reports.
South Korean retailers are revamping their stores to provide special services at branches frequented by global visitors. This comes as the number of foreign visitors is showing a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, there were more than 1.2 million visitors to the country this October. That's almost 160% more than in the same month last year. One branch of a major supermarket chain created a special section in September named Must-Haves of Korea.
This store has a special K-food zone with the most popular products purchased by foreign customers in one place.
According to store officials, before the pandemic, nearly half of the sales at this branch came from foreign customers, but this dropped to as low as 1% of sales during the pandemic. The sales from foreign customers have recovered to around 30% as of August this year. The branch also provides a luggage storage service, currency exchange, and tax refund machines, and its international shipping service resumed in May.
I came from Europe for a few days, and I'm sending it from here because in order to bring a big suitcase, there was a very big fee.
One of South Korea's main health and beauty chains has reopened its largest branch in the country, located in Myeongdong, one of the most popular areas for tourists. This branch welcomes around 3,000 customers every day, with about 90% of them being foreign customers. It was recently renovated with a focus on introducing a wider range of brands to foreign customers and creating opportunities for the chain to expand globally.
So I think it's pretty foreigner-friendly. Compared to my experiences in other countries, I would say it's pretty organized. It's like by brand and by like the specific product that you're looking for, and they really help you.
The K-Beauty Now zone features emerging K-beauty brands, and the store is arranged so products in high demand from foreign customers, such as face masks and sunscreens, are at the front of the store. A specialized mobile website provides a multilingual guide service, including the map of the store and the location of popular brands. At the Global Service Lounge, visitors can use the tax refund service, which saves them a step at the airport. According to store officials, from January to October this year, its branches in Myeongdong area have seen an about 840% increase of sales to foreign customers compared with the same period last year. They added that this year, they also saw customers from a wider range of countries, with more customers from English-speaking countries and from Southeast Asia and Japan. Yoon, Arirang News.
The number of drug offenders caught in the first 10 months of this year in South Korea has reached an all-time high. According to the Special Investigation Headquarters for Drug-Related Crimes on Wednesday, the number of those caught from January to October this year stood at over 22,000. This is a record high for the period and is a jump of over nearly 50% year-on-year. By age, those in their teens and 20s made up more than one-third of the total, soaring by almost 54% compared to last year. Officials attributed the rise to the government's strict crackdown on drug-related offenses and added that the younger generation has gained more access to drugs as many transactions are made online. South Korea is an active contributor to the international community's efforts to address global challenges and achieve sustainable development goals. And our Lee Si-hoo sat down with Ulrika Modéer, the Assistant Secretary General of the UNDP here in Seoul, to discuss what's particular about Korea's cooperation.
South Korea is the first country to have gone from being a recipient of official development assistance to being an ODA donor. And it happened in just 60 years. Ulrika Modéer, the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Bureau of External Relations and Advocacy of the United Nations Development Program, says that South Korea's development journey is an inspiring story for many countries today.
When Korea engages in international development cooperation with the UN, it can speak to its own experience. And that gives a lot of trust as we build relations. And trust is something that is very much needed in the world of today as well, because there is an increasing lack of trust between North and South, East and West, with shifting geopolitics as well.
And what's particular about South Korea's cooperation is its long-standing commitment to helping those who are marginalized.
So many times when we see Korean engagement, it's support to people who live with disabilities in or because of conflict and war, like in Ukraine, for instance, or female victims of gender-based violence, which is also support that we get from Korea in work in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's really also to look for those who may live in the margins, in the most conflict-affected or poor countries, not to leave anyone behind.
While many of today's conflicts need political solutions, assistance and aid can play a key role in preventing future conflicts.
We also believe that we need to invest much more in prevention. Some conflicts may not be able to prevent, but many of them actually are. And here I also believe that this increasing engagement on behalf of Korea in the international development cooperation and the focus of prevention will be really key.
Modéer says there's a need for more countries to believe in the impact of international development cooperation.
I believe here the investments that Korea is doing in international development cooperation is making change every day, whether in Ukraine or Laos DPR or in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But it's also bringing countries together in this belief that we are one humanity and we only have one Earth, and we have to work together to solve many of these problems.
The UN Development Program will discuss with South Korea its continued engagement, especially in the potential of digital sustainable development. 이시후, Arirang News.
It's sub-zero temperatures around this time of year. However, unlike the seasonal norms, the weather is getting milder these days. Along with early spring-like temperatures, smoke from overseas is on the rise again. Ultra-fine dust hit the whole country today. It's not just fine dust that's in the forecast, but also about 5 millimeters of rain for the entire nation with gusty winds and lightning until tonight. Strong winds of more than 25 meters per second are coming tonight. The air quality is expected to improve tomorrow as the wind sweeps the fine dust away. Tomorrow is the season's Taesar, which means major snow in the lunar calendar. The weather will be clear without any news of snow with clean air. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start at -1 degrees, Gwangju and Daejeon 3 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will jump to 2 digits in most regions, causing wide temperature gaps. Seoul will get up to 10 degrees, Gwangju, Gyeongju and Busan 13 degrees Celsius. On Friday, daytime temperatures in Seoul will rise to 16 degrees Celsius. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with our AI headline news. Good night.